Hey guys, I think we're recording. This is like our fifth attempt at trying to make this work, but I think we may or may not have something working right now. So, our idea is, and one of our plans was just something we were thinking about, was to kind of record a conversation. I was just personally thinking, man, we got a lot of smart people around the gym who I have all these side conversations with that I think are really cool. And I think, you know what, other people might think these are cool as well. So we're going to try to record one today. We're going to do a little group conversation here, kind of about nutrition. So we got Van on the line and we got Danny on the line. I'm just going to introduce them or let them introduce themselves a little bit and tell you a little bit about their background. I keep looking at myself down here, but I really should probably look at the camera up here.
Camera, Kevin.
It's weird though. I can't figure it out. So, Van, you go first. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Actually, before we do that, I'm going to talk about our conversation. Basically, introduce our conversation a little bit. Basically, we want to talk about nutrition today, and specifically about. There's kind of always this debate out there about quality versus quantity. If I had to pick, would I choose to count all of my calories, or would I choose just to eat whole foods? Now, I know that's a dichotomy, and it's that we don't have to break it down into that sort of dichotomy, but what we are going to try to make the case for today is how important the quality of the food is, and that the quality of your food, it may even be more important than how much of it is going in your mouth, and we'll kind of talk about a little bit about that. So Van, back to you. Tell us about you and your what you do in your line of work and your expertise in this sort of thing.
Okay, so my name is Van. I'm a physician assistant. I studied general family practice at Emory University in Atlanta. Originally from Ogden, moved back here to take a job with Midtown Community Health Center. I currently practice with Midtown. As far as my background goes with nutrition, I've had a little bit of a journey of my own. The traditional training that I received in my medical program just never felt like or seemed like it was complete. And so in the years since then, I've done a lot of studying, particularly about whole foods, focusing on sugar and grains and things like that. And I've learned a whole lot more in the past several years on my own studying than I was ever taught in any kind of medical education. And so I'm pretty passionate about nutrition, quality of food, and things like that, simply because I've gone on my own weight loss journey several years ago. I lost just over 50 pounds. And I've used several different techniques to keep it off, and have settled into a couple of different pathways that have not only supported a healthy lifestyle, but helped me maintain that weight loss. So, and it's significantly different than what I was taught in school. And so I think it's valuable information to share with other people as they go through these kinds of journeys themselves, particularly when you walk into a gym, like a CrossFit gym, where when you start working out, exercising your body, you start finding out, hey, there's motivation to eat well too, because why in the world would you want to keep working so hard if you're not going to add in that diet component? So yeah, that's a pretty basic history for me.
That's awesome. I don't think many people that are around you or that are in the gym know that you've gone through that sort of journey, that you've lost 50 pounds. And so I'm going to require a pre-Van 50 pounds heavier Van picture to be posted.
Maybe.
When we post this video.
Maybe. We'll see. We'll see.
All right, Danny, tell us a little bit about you.
Okay, my name is Danny. I am a pharmacist. I went to pharmacy school at the University of Utah. But before I did my PharmD degree, I actually got a chemistry degree too, just because I was interested in chemistry, and then I wanted to mix that with the body. So I've always had an interest there. I currently work as a hospital pharmacist, but I'm lucky enough to do it at home. And I got into nutrition. I started CrossFit when Canon, so my second, was about a year old. I started at Wasatch, and probably 2 months into it, they wanted to do a whole 30. So I jumped on with that and decided to do that because my best friend was doing it there too, and she just started too. And ironically, right while we were in that whole 30, or maybe it was right after, my best friend got celiac. So I kind of did that journey with her too, and we learned a lot about food together. That's been about 5 years ago, and ever since then I've just been really interested after I saw what the Whole30 did to my body, I noticed my sleep. It was an incredible difference, which is what kind of turned me on and made me believe. And I also got allergies that year, which put a real damper on my running. And once we did the Whole30, the allergies went away too. And so after I noticed those two things, I've spent a lot of time on my own reading and just completely 100% interested in that and nutrition. And just gone from there. I've done a lot of experimentation with my own body, with dairy, with wheat. And then I also have a child who's had to go off wheat too. So it's just been kind of life circumstance after life circumstance. It's made me do more and more research and get really passionate about it.
That's pretty awesome. So we have a PA, a pharmacist, and a chiropractor, and if you can get 3 of those people to agree on anything, then we're probably, we're probably onto something here. I'm just going to say, but I think that's really interesting. I think I heard, all of us come from different backgrounds, but we found a place where we've had nutrition impact our lives. I know for myself, my whole family has sort of like blood sugar sort of metabolic issues where like if any of us skip a meal, that whole hangry thing is a real thing for all of us, right? And that's because our body doesn't know how to burn fat between meals. We're on this constant blood sugar up and down. And I still remember this day when I was hearing this idea of like people that don't eat anything processed, and I was just like, what? Now that's great. How could you live without processed food? When I grew up, it was like, frozen pot pies and frozen pizzas and anything you could buy from the frozen section, and you could throw it in the microwave. Doritos, soda, that's just kind of how we did it. So when I went through this journey, and luckily I had Jesse to help me cook through this process, but as I went through this journey, it was the craziest thing because one, I did too. I ended up losing about 30 pounds. I was close up, getting a little on the hefty side, and I ended up losing all this weight, and it just came off so easy. It was crazy for me, and I know not everybody has that experience, but and then the side effect was I was like, I could skip a meal, and I was fine. And I was like, wow, this is really interesting how my whole body signals had changed, and in a way that I wasn't expecting. And I think that's kind of where I kind of wanted to start this conversation, was how the whole concept of counting our calories when it comes to like there's a few different ways that we do this out there. There's the macro way where we count our macros. Essentially, we're counting calories, but they're kind of breaking it down into carbohydrates, fat, proteins, and counting. Van, what would you say are the pros to that method, and then maybe a couple of the cons to that method?
So as far as counting calories or counting macros in general, my initial weight loss journey was designed specifically around counting calories. And initially it worked. That's what I used for almost an entire year to lose that much weight. However, I also discovered that it's incredibly difficult to maintain. So in my practice, one of the things that I have to find to help patients with weight loss and maintenance of weight loss is something that is manageable for long-term and long periods of time. So the good things about macro counting and calorie counting in general is it does give you kind of the power to understand what you're putting in your body. And it does give you a little bit of reassurance. However, I find the con to it to be that it's difficult to sustain, and sustainability is one of the biggest keys in maintaining weight loss. If you get tired of tracking numbers and writing things down, and you're constantly worried about if you're sitting down at the table and having so many macros of protein and so many of fat and so many of carbs, is that getting in the way of you understanding kind of what you're eating and why you're eating it? So there are some pros to it. It does empower you to understand more about pretty much most of your diet, but it does start to call into question sustainability. And it depends on the type of person. If you're somebody that really does geek out on numbers and loves writing stuff down and loves recording and chasing this stuff, then it's a benefit to you. If you're somebody that struggles with those things and it makes it more tedious, then you're not going to keep going. And so you kind of have to discover who you are, where you're at in your weight loss or weight maintenance journey, and decide if that's the right call for you.
Danny, do you have anything to add to that? What are your thoughts on that?
I do. I agree. I agree with Van a lot in that it gives you the education maybe to know what you're putting in your body, and it helps you there. But I've seen so many people at the end of the day say, I have this many left. Let me go. I can eat a cookie now today. Or I made room for French fries today. Or I can still meet my macros, and I ate this horrible meal today. And for some people, that's what it is. It's about fitting in the things you still want to eat and not actually changing the quality of your food. And I have to say, I tried macros for 2 days. For 2 days, I made it. I have never counted calories. I only eat quality foods. And I think your body, once you start on quality foods and you don't have the bad foods doing the damage, your body will send you a signal saying, look, you're full. Like, you don't need to eat anymore. So I don't think it's necessary. I think it's so much extra work. And agree with Van 100% that it's just not sustainable. I don't know how someone can do that every meal of the day, all day long. And you're kind of defeating, I think, the purpose of health in general, because you're still making room at the end of the day. Some people are. Crap.
Yeah, I remember that specifically. I can still have 2 scoops of ice cream.
Exactly.
I don't have calories left.
And that's not
true.
healthy.
And this is a very interesting concept because, counting calories, this is a kind of a foreign concept to our species, right? Like, we didn't know what a carbohydrate, fat, or protein was, probably till a couple hundred years ago, maybe not even that, maybe 100 years ago. So this is totally foreign concept, and yet, sort of weight gain is sort of a newer concept. So where it's a newer challenge to our society. So I wanted to just kind of break down this idea of counting your calories and just how difficult it is for us as a human, and then think about how amazing it is that our bodies can actually do this for us and has done it for us for thousands and thousands of years. So, basically, if you were to mismanage your calories in versus calories out. So the concept is, if I'm gaining weight, I'm putting too many calories into my body, then I'm taking away, then I'm expending with my energy. And this concept is true, right? In order for something to get more massive, you have to put more calories into it than take it away. In order to get something less massive, you've got to take energy away from that system. And this concept is true. However, when we think about how difficult it would be for us to just manage that and just count that and do it to a precise enough point to either maintain our weight or make that weight go up and down, we can really realize how difficult this is and how this concept doesn't really make sense. And there's a lot more going on underneath our bodies to make this work. So if you mismanage counting your calories by about a half a slice of bread, right there, so you just take a couple extra bites here or there, you'll gain 7 to 8 pounds a year because of the amount of calories that are in there. So how hard would that be? I don't even think we have the ability to really look at a piece of food or look at what we're putting in if we're not just eating everything processed that's got it labeled on the back. I don't think we really have the ability to manage within 50 calories a day of what that is. Is that even possible?
Well, I mean, you got to start with the fact that everybody's basal metabolic rate is going to be different. You've got FDA regulations based on the 2,000 calorie a day diet. My basal metabolic rate is vastly different than Danny's, just because of age and gender and general build. I mean, basing everything off of this 2,000 calorie diet starts people off behind. And so, if you're miscalculating off of a bad basal metabolic rate and you really don't know how to even start counting calories, like you said, 1 or 2 bites of bread here or there can throw everything off. And so knowing the exact numbers just to start can be difficult. And so that's where things start to fall apart from the very beginning.
So one of the things I think about is how many of us are actually neither gaining weight or losing weight, whether you have a few extra pounds or not. Like, a lot of us are kind of at this set point. And the fact that we're at a set point is pretty crazy, when just a few calories here or there, if the calories in, calories out model was really true and real, and then then it would seem like we would all be fluctuating all over the place all the time, but we're really not,
Right.
for the most part. So it is very clear to me that our bodies are signaling us all the time. And why would weight be any different? When you think about how much our body, we talk about homeostasis, how much our body tightly regulates everything. It tightly regulates our pH, which is the acidity or base inside of our body within just a few decimal points, or else you die, right? What are some other things, Danny? What are some other things that your body regulates on a constant basis?
Think about thirst. That's down to that's another thing that's really tightly regulated. You actually get thirsty. I think that's another amazing thing your body does.
Right. So thirst goes back to like your blood pressure, your blood volume, right? Like if we got dehydrated too much, we would our blood volume would drop. We'd go into shock and we would die. But we get this thing where we're like, I need to drink some water, and that actually works. Like our body signals are awesome most of the time, right? So what happens? Why are people gaining weight then? If our body systems tightly regulate everything else in our lives, what is happening that is causing us some people to gain weight? Danny, take that one for us. What do you think is causing that?
Our food is doing more damage to our bodies than anyone realizes. In our meat, for example, we have antibiotics. Antibiotics go right into your gut and do damage there and open up your gut and let stuff out of your gut. And then it causes a systemic inflammation. So just in our meat, we have also hormones. There's another thing that regulates our weight and our entire system. Vegetables, we have pesticides. We have sugar that does a whole nother side of damage that no one even really knows. I mean, it's starting to come out finally. That sugar, it maybe does more damage than anything else to our bodies. It's not fat like we thought. How about the low fat theory we've had for the last 20 years? Look at the damage I think that's done, because then it's led us to more processed food, more flour, more sugar, more low fat sweeteners. And then we're not getting the fats that we need because everyone thinks we don't need fat. So it's our food.
So our food, we're kind of in this situation where our food is totally different than what we've eaten as a species for many, many years. Tell us, Van, how do you think that our food being so different than the way we've eaten many, many years is changing our body signals? Connect those dots for us. How do you think that works?
Yeah, so in my world, in the world of medicine, you can see it just over the last 100 years. So we'll take the disease that everybody knows about, diabetes. 100 years ago, diabetes was rare in the sense that it was less than 1 in 1,000 that experienced it, and it was a very subspecialty that studied it. And along the lines of what Danny was saying, as soon as we start incorporating processed grains and sugar into the American diet, roughly 60 years ago, when the sugar lobby convinced the FDA to go with a low-fat diet instead of a low-sugar diet, the instance of diabetes is now 1 in 5, almost 1 in 4 in America. And the obesity epidemic started roughly 60 years ago. You can watch the graphs throughout the years just continue to rise. And so now we're well over 30% of adult Americans that are overweight or obese. And so for a long time, the mantra was fat makes you fat. The science that's coming out now, we understand, is fat is not making us fat. Processed carbohydrates and simple sugars are making us fat, along with the chronic inflammation that comes with eating those foods. So we're starting to shift. We're starting to change and realize that healthy fats and protein and healthy carbohydrates, those are found in vegetables specifically because of the fiber content, are what we should be focusing on. And this is where it comes into quality versus quantity, right? When we talk eating whole foods, bread is not a whole food. It's not. Anything that's made from a processed flour is not a whole food. In order to make bread, you have to have sugar because the yeast needs sugar to rise. And not only that, but processed flours, when they're introduced into the gut, your metabolism treats processed grain just like it does sugar. It is seen as instant energy and used as instant energy, and then stored as fat, both visceral around your organs and the peripheral fat, the stuff we see on our waistlines. And so the knowledge of sugar and carbohydrates and how your body processes those is starting to shift in a good way. It's almost too late because diabetes is such a big deal now and obesity is such a big deal. The good news is if you focus on this stuff and really remove the things from your diet that have ended up making the human race fat, in other words, processed grains and sugar primarily, then you can reverse this. You can start losing weight naturally. And it's not about, hey, I ate 2,000 calories today. It's I ate a whole lot of vegetables, some lean meats, a lot of fish, and the occasional starch. And you're throwing in there nuts and seeds for snacks and things like that, and your body shifts its metabolism to processing those foods as fuel. And that's the beginning of a long-term, maintainable, sustainable weight loss.
Awesome. Yeah, I wanted to point out one thing that goes along with this idea of calories in, calories out, and counting our calories constantly. The natural conclusion that is drawn from that, if someone is overweight, it has to be is that they are gluttonous and lazy. And
Mm-hmm.
this is false.
Mm-hmm.
No, people who are overweight have tried everything. This is false, and it causes shame, and it causes complete and unnecessary shame on our population. I like to think about it like this. Think about a teenager. A teenager is going to get more massive. They're going to grow. And so if they're going to grow, they have to put in more calories than they take out. They must. Without a doubt, their body will make that happen because it's going to get more massive. Their body is signaling them to put in more calories than they take away. And so what does a teenager do? They eat a lot and they sit around and they be lazy, right? So because their body's telling them to do that, they don't have a choice in the matter. So the similar way is if our signals get messed up by, as Van and Danny have just pointed out, by our foods that we are consuming, too much processed grains, too much processed sugars, too much processed carbohydrate in general, our body signals get messed up, we become metabolically broken, and suddenly our body signals us to start gaining weight. That person may be able to count their calories for a short amount of time, and they may be able to make an influence on their weight change for a period of time. But if their body is continually signaling it, they cannot shut those signals down for forever. Because as soon as and sometimes they'll do more damage by getting on a caloric deficit, they'll do more damage. So I think our focus here, and one of the things I would like people to know is that by shifting to a whole foods diet that Van just laid out, we can actually change body signals. And by changing body signals, that's how you can make long-term changes to your health. And that's I mean, this is a whole other topic, but that's also what we're doing in CrossFit with our exercise, is trying to change the body signals. We're not in there to just burn a certain number of calories. Like it drives me crazy when I go to the Jazz game and walk up and down the stairs. My watch tells me I burned more calories than I did during CrossFit that day. Right? No, so that's a problem because people are relying on their watch to tell them how many calories they burn, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't do enough." But in reality, they need to get the right kind of exercise to help shift their body signals as well. That's a whole nother topic. Maybe we'll tackle that one another time. Danny, what has been?
I have a point, Kevin.
Go ahead.
So along the lines of you saying that in the past you've gone from hangry to now eating better food, and now you can go between meals. So it's a real thing. The more sugar you put into your body, the more grains you put into your body, the more your body wants more sugar. It really does send the signal to eat more sugar. It's a proven fact. We've seen it study after study. And they also say, too, sugar is 8 times as addictive as cocaine. And once you can get those things out and start eating whole foods and get the grains out and get the sugar out, your body is going to stop. You're going to stop wanting treats all the time and feeling like you're depriving yourself, and it's a constant willpower battle. So once you can shift everything, like you were saying, and your signals change, everything changes.
So tell me about your guys' diet. Are you guys depriving yourself all the time? Do you guys just eat like terrible not good food? Like is that how you maintained thin and been good? Like, how's that work?
You take that
I
one
think
first,
that's
Danny.
at the gym.
Say
Is
again.
seeing how much.
Say again.
I just said, Danny, take that one.
Okay. I was gonna say, if you've been at the gym, I think you're constantly seeing me eat, especially. Like, I'm eating while we're working out. I'm eating before we're working out. I eat constantly. I eat more than my husband does. My husband sits in awe, and he gives me part of his dinner. If we cook a dinner, he's like, here, you have the bigger plate, because he knows I just eat more than he does. I usually don't put anything bad into my body. It's meats, veggies, nuts, seeds, fats, how we've talked. But I eat constantly. I'm never hungry. If I'm hungry, I eat. But guess what, though? Guess what I don't do on this? Like, since I've made this change, I don't ever get full. Do you remember feeling full in the past, going out to eat, and you eat so much you're sick for 2 hours? I don't do that anymore. And it's not even that I'm trying not to do that. It's that my body I stop eating when I'm not hungry anymore. And that's changed, too, with it.
You know, I think for me, the wake-up call was actually back at Wasatch CrossFit also before you guys opened Roy CrossFit. I jumped in on what was called a paleo challenge at the time. I think they were doing Danny's Whole30 along with it, but there were those of us that chose to do paleo. And up until that point, I had never really explored anything other than, being aware of calories and things like that. And so I jump into this paleo diet, and it was fascinating for me because I had only experienced weight loss through counting calories. And all of a sudden I changed my my approach and was eating fish fillets on beds of spinach with a sweet potato on the side and an avocado, and realizing over a period of about 3 or 4 weeks that I was putting in maybe 3,000 to 3,300 calories a day with this food. And I went from, I would say 17% body fat down to 10. And so that was the wake-up call for me of, oh, you know what? Counting calories really isn't what I thought it was. And there are ways that are sustainable to do this, to lose weight and get stronger, to get fitter, and overall have a better quality of life. Because like Danny said, you start eating these grains and the sugar, they're naturally gas-producing molecules anyway, so they're gut irritants. And they're going to cause stomach upset overall. And so you remove those from the diet. You can actually eat more calories if you're really wanting to care about that and still lose weight significantly. It's a fascinating experience shifting your body from carbohydrates as your primary fuel system to fat. And it works.
That's awesome. Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think, we at our house, we eat awesome, rich, delicious food. We eat bacon and eggs for breakfast with vegetables and just great whole meals of food that just tastes good. And it's awesome, and I'm not as good as Danny. I do still put in some crap in my body every once in a while, but one thing that I found is that since I went from, I feel like I've actually improved my body signals, that I'm not metabolically broken. And so I can have, I can go to a party and I can eat that piece of cake because I'm not metabolically broken and my body will handle that well. If you are metabolically broken, you can't necessarily do that until you kind of get fixed. But that can happen, and it takes some time, but it can happen. So the CrossFit model, Greg Glassman always said, eat meat, vegetables, nuts, seeds, some fruit, little starch, no sugar. And really, that's it. In a nutshell, that is it. He really nailed it. It's one of the reasons why I loved CrossFit is when I went in there, I figured, man, they got it on the nutrition side. They've got it on the exercise side. They've got it on just everything. They had really done their homework. And so I think if we stick with that as our motto, when we're thinking about that, and if you need to count your calories because you're trying to overcome some body signals, right? That may have been for you, Van, right? When you started, you're trying to overcome some bad body signals, so maybe you do need to count. And that's really important. But know that the counting is a means to an end and not the end in and of itself. The food that's going into that counting and it should be helping you be able to not count at a later date. And I think that is where we should all try to get to. So counting is not bad. Macros is not bad because it actually probably and maybe absolutely needed in some situations. But you can't count so that you can have that cookie at the end of the day because that's defeating the purpose.
Exactly.
Awesome chat. Do you guys got anything else to add?
No, I think that's all I've got. I'm sure there's plenty more to add in, but we can do more chats later.
Well, we'll have to see if it even worked, if it recorded. We'll have to see how it goes. But it was a fun chat anyway. So thanks for jumping on, guys, and we will see you later.
Okay. Have a good one.